right, okay, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's day 2 of Offset, and I'm Ryan Selvy. I'm your host. I have a nice gallery of people to bring on today. We're starting off strong with Karolin. Very excited. She's a wonderful illustrator and motion designer, and I'm excited to have you guys see her work. She also has brought along a lot of stuff to talk about as far as her inspirations, where she's been and where she's going. And seeing her progress and being able to just talk all things art with her. I'm really excited to show that off. But before we hop into it and bring her on to the show, I just want to say thank you to everyone that I see in the chat over on Behance and on YouTube. If you guys are over on YouTube, do us a favor, hop on over to Behance. Wade is going to put the link for the Behance show into the YouTube chat, so you can easily hop on over and say hi. That's where most of the conversation is going to be happening, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat and relaying all the questions and comments you may have for Karolin and putting it on for everyone to talk about. So thank you to Bruce and Rick Bahi. It's good to see you here for the first time. Welcome to the show. This is a little bit untraditional of Adobe Live. This is a show that happens when the Adobe Live team gets to take a little break and I get to take over for like a day or two. And so this is our second day. We're doing interviews. It's very podcast question and answer style, where we really get to explore what it means to be an artist and also just get inside the brain of cool artists that are currently working in the industry. Hello to Paloma and Wade. Thank you for moderating. I see Katarina's in the chat. It's really good to see you. And of course, Andrew Hawkroddle and Oliver. Thank you guys for being here. Mike as well. It's great to see everybody. And if you guys have questions for Karolin as we go on, please let us know. So without further ado, and without any more word vomit, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in Karolin. Please give her a warm welcome. This is her first time on Adobe Live, and I doubt it will be her last. So, hey, how's it going?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm getting my day off to a good start. I mean, I guess it's the middle of the day, but for you, you're kind of on the evening, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's pitch black out there.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you set the mood right for the rest of the day, for the rest of the world.
Definitely. I have a
So,
candle.
where are you based out of?
Yeah, I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's super nice right now. We have the snow and it's super Christmassy vibe. Got the little Christmas candle lit now, so get the
we're out in Colorado for Christmas. I'm back in Brooklyn now, but having all the snow around was really nice, and it was a good little break for the holidays. But now we're swinging right back into the new year with a good offset, and it's great to have you be a part of that. Do you want to take a minute and just kind of introduce yourself, say what you're about, and let the people know what you're interested in?
Of course. So my name is Karolin. I'm a freelancing motion designer, illustrator, and art director based in Stockholm, Sweden. And I love doing a lot of 2D things. I do a lot of illustrations of animals, make them move. And I also have way too many hobbies. I like to crochet, I like to knit, I like to punch needle, I like to climb, I love art. So I always go to different art galleries and museums whenever I can travel. And that's basically it. I love to dive into different crafts and get to know new people.
So can you just let me know, because I've never actually heard of it before. What is punch needle?
Oh, punch needle. It's basically you put yarn through a big needle and you punch through fabric to make kind of like carpet.
Okay. So a little bit like embroidery almost.
Yeah, kind of, but more violent in a sense. You have a big ass needle and just like punch it.
And Rick also says, oh, she has a fuzzy chair. So look, you got it all set out for you. It also looks like I don't know if you're a friend of Neil Vera Harvard, but Neil is also here, and Neil says you've got this.
Thank you. Hi, Neil.
And yeah, as you guys say things in the chat, I will go ahead and I will relay them over to Karolin. But I think the best thing that we can do to start things off is just to get people familiar with your work. So let's take a look at your work. let's look at your work. So first up, we just have your reel that you have on your website. So let's check it out and see how it goes. Wow, that's awesome. It's like so much to digest so quickly. But what got you into illustration and kind of the animation of your illustration as well?
Whoa, it's a long history. It actually started, I think, in high school, because
Okay.
I was a very straight A student, and as a typical Asian family, I had basically two career paths in my life. It
Okay.
was either becoming a doctor or a scientist.
Yeah.
Nothing else existed. Like, so I went to the super prestigious high school, and I was doing a lot of science stuff, and went on to labs during my summers, and yeah, everything was like settled. But I always loved drawing. Like, that was the main passion I had. So in Sweden, we can take like gap years before going into college or university. So my gap year was to study at Hyper Island, which is a super creative school with a lot of different opportunities to explore. So the program I went to is called Digital Media Creative. Super broad. We had a lot of programmers, PM, strategists, motion designers that came out from that program. And I went in there completely blind. Like, I knew nothing about this industry. I didn't even know that motion design was a thing. So going in there, I discovered like, oh, motion design. This is cool. I like it. It was the perfect combination between like the technical digital stuff combined with the creative chaotic things that I really loved. So it made total sense. So
It's such like a wonderful way to approach any of it, is just kind of have it win you over. And
mm,
the idea of going in and being like, I have something that I'm interested in, but I'd love to see what there is to it, and
yeah,
then just becoming so talented at it, and then looking at where you are now.
yeah,
Um,
like the straight A student I was. I went to school during the day, and at evenings I just studied motion. Like,
that's some crazy work ethic.
it was crazy. Like a big
But
credit
now
to
you've hung up the lab coat, I think you said, on your
Mhm.
website.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so down with that.
And now it's all illustration, motion design,
Yeah.
and you've got a wonderful portfolio here. I
Thank
was going to
you.
go through and I was going to pull up a few of the different ones. I'm
Mm,
going to gravitate towards Cartoon Network because I'm a big cartoon guy.
same.
Tell us a little bit about this one from 2021.
This one was like a dream coming true, if I'm honest. Like, Bullpen reached out and said, "Hey, we have this amazing crew of animators and illustrators, and we need some extra help with some character animations." So it was basically divided into two paths. First section, I got a couple of characters already designed and ready to just have a looping animation that they can just put in this. It could be like super small little things that loops, like for instance the horse with the little emojis down there. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see the really, really great character designs by the team. And the second part was that I got some roughs that I had to clean up using the vectors in After Effects. So here are the roughs that got cleaned up. And here, under the more animation, you see the characters that went looping.
Now, while you were doing this, did you have a favorite character to animate? And by the time you were done, did that change?
Oh, my favorite character were all the ones from Teen Titans. Like,
Okay.
I'm really, really Teen Titans nerd. Like, especially when I got Raven, I was so starstruck. I'm like, oh my god, like I can die now. I'm so happy. So
Raven's actually my favorite Teen Titan as well. I really liked it, and the
yeah.
one that was growing up. I tried to watch the one that's
Mm,
more recent,
mm,
and it's different. I
yeah.
was glad to see that the series lives on.
Mm,
Obviously, I'll be partial towards the one that I grew up on.
same.
But I love what she did with it, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that you liked Raven so much.
Yes. Raymond, she's the best. So cool.
Did any of them prove to be harder than expected?
Well, I think for some reason the one with the yo-yo, I don't know the name of the character. It's down there. I had really struggling with the yo-yo animation. Never done that, so
Yeah.
that was the struggle. But the cleanups were surprisingly really fun and simple to do because the roughs were so nice, and I never cleaned up in like After Effects using
Hmm.
vectors. So that was a challenge, but it worked. And especially with the gradients, that was also a little bit tricky to make it all feel seamless. And
Yeah, I noticed the gradients in Raven's coat. I
mm,
think looks really cool, and
yeah,
it just adds another sense of dimension to it. But it all stays so consistent through the entire animation, which is really great.
super cool, super
Uh,
fun project.
Moving on to other parts of your portfolio, though, I don't want to just have Cartoon Network take over too much.
Mm,
I'm kind of excited about this Outsideology,
yes.
um, and this is from 2021 as well.
Mm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about this guy?
Of course. This was part of when I worked at Soya, which is a super small 2D animation studio in Stockholm. Super, super nice people, the kindest people you ever meet on the street. But this was teamed up with another agencies that worked with the backgrounds. As you can see, it's live action, but we had the pleasure to do the design and the animation for it. So I was part of the illustration team mainly that worked on creating the characters, making all the animals coming to life, all these little like all these little animals. Oh, it was such a fun project.
Little
Love it
sugar
so much.
bar. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the colors are just so crazy. And we really, really wanted to make sure that the characters felt human in a sense that they are not like perfectly sized, like proportions. Like we have a tall girl and a very, very short little guy that comes in pretty soon. There we have him, Weston, and his little square. Super, super cute. And you can see the girl Petra, she's a little bit chubbier in the stomach part, which I think is super important to showcase. Like kids can be in all kinds sizes and
Yeah,
shapes.
all different body forms, and
Yeah,
everyone, brings realism to, what ends up going out to the mass media. So,
yeah, super important. And a fun fact, the main character, in one of the first character drafts we made with him, he had a robot arm, but that got cut, unfortunately.
oh, bummer.
Yeah, that would be so fun to animate.
Now, where were some like pieces of inspiration that you had while you were pulling these character designs and approaching the project? How was it working with others while you're creating these, I don't know, iconic characters for this project?
So we started off, we had, I think, 4 days just to purely design characters. And it was um, it was high and low. We tried different kind of like maybe some more short and stuffy, big head children's characters, and we wanted to try out like what if the girl was bald? What happened if she had super long arms and things like that? So if you scroll down later on my portfolio, you can see some sketches of them.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. So
Also, I
here,
love some of how leggy some of these characters are.
yeah,
Like this lightning bug's legs. It's like,
yeah.
wow, okay, someone did squats. Okay.
Yeah. I love to add a little like garment on each animal. That was so fun to give some more personality. But here you can see the early sketches of the characters and the little animals having different patterns. And yeah, here we have the Petra and Weston. That was so fun to work with.
Now, these are these scanned in, or do you do digital sketching for the most part?
Mostly digital sketching. I
Oh,
do
okay.
sketch sometimes, but I feel like digital is more forgiving in a sense.
Yes, Command Z,
Yeah,
undo. or
Love.
2 fingers, you know.
Yeah.
No, it's always really interesting. I have a friend of mine that he swears by digital sketching, and he said the big thing that changed it for him was he got one of those paper covers for his iPad.
Yeah.
It like changes the feeling of the screen, so it feels a little bit more authentic to paper and pen.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's one of those things that it's becoming more and more industry standard to just be able to sketch digitally. So I think that having that as an upper hand for sure. I gotta get better at that.
But I feel like sometimes it's really nice to sketch on paper just to start, to just get dirty, you know.
Yeah, get your ideas out.
Yeah, it's so easy to feel like I have to make something perfect when it comes to digital art. Like at least I feel the pressure to like the line has to be straight, the line has to be like perfect and things like that. But on pen and paper, when you put it down, it's there. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah. But how can I fix it? That's usually the problem there. Like, fuck, what happens now?
So which one would be your favorite one that you have out of this series, you think? Like, what's your favorite character?
Oh, my favorite character is her, like in the middle.
This is Squirrel.
Yes, it was so fun. Like
The
when
platform high
can you
heels.
ever make it like, oh, you need to draw a diva squirrel that
Yeah.
and sings. I'm like, is this my job? It's amazing.
I like the eyeliner that's going off on the side too, or like the face paint, kind of very David Bowie-esque. And then I also like the little highlights that you have in the shoes, and then even having the stars on this, like, I guess it's a boa of sorts.
Yeah.
Feels really nice because it's not just a stamped pattern. Like this one has extra points than this one, and this one's going off the edge. It just feels very real and feels very true to the character, which is really nice. I also really like the frogs, big frog fan. But one of my favorites also is the fact that this tree has a beard.
Yeah. Such
it's
a
very fun.
And the little mom tattoo.
It's very fun project, and it feels very approachable. Before we hop on to the next segment, though, I do want to see what this cute puppy's all about. What's All in Illinois?
All in Illinois is the same agency that we work with. Basically, Illinois needed some kind of way to show how to celebrate the holidays during the pandemic when you couldn't meet your close ones. Yeah. So we had a little series that had some TV spots and some, I think, prints, not entirely sure, but a lot of social media assets that, well, you can have a party by yourself but you can see your friends on Zoom, and you can have these long distance celebrations like that. And it was super, super fun. This was actually part of a pitch in the beginning. So obviously we won it. And the key here was to showcase a lot of different characters, a lot of different ethnicities, ages. We wanted kids, we wanted some puppies, dogs, of course. And this was actually the winning pitch. So I wanted to bring on some four-legged friends, of course, but also very clean colors that kind of Google-esque vibes. So it's very easy to approach, and since it's a big campaign for the state of Illinois, it's very important to make sure that they feel comfortable and this feel professional, and this is easy to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think that you're raising your point about how it feels like very Google. It plays to the idea of the virtualness of the subject matter, and feels like it goes hand in hand with something that feels technological. Yeah. And I think it's really also cool to see how just the change of color between these two styles still achieve the same goal, but give two different feels. And it's fun to see that you guys went with a more colorful approach, which I prefer, but I also would have been happy with the other one as well.
Yeah, and it's super nice that it's not the typical Christmas colors. It's not it's really, really nice in a sense. So it's more holiday approachable because not everyone celebrates Christmas.
That's great. Now, for this project, were you mostly character design? Did you work on any of the animations for these?
And no animation, unfortunately, but only characters. There were so many assets.
Yeah.
And these were only the favorites, but it was a very tight deadline, of course.
Oh, always is. How was it when you were working with animators then, as you were passing off different assets? Did you find certain success or harder points that you had learnings from when you were kind of doing the handoff, or did you kind of just hand off and they took it from there?
I usually just hand off and let them do the thing, since I
Yeah.
trust them so much. They're really, really great, and especially I worked with them for a year, so they knew my style and they know how I kind of wanted it, how they want to feel, and just having fun. Because I also feel like it's important to not restrict the animators. Say like, I want you to do exactly this.
Right.
Just have them more open and have their stab, and they feel like, okay, this is going too much, I can come in. But
Yeah.
it's
Do
important.
you organize your files in any certain way, or is it just kind of like just like, I don't know, guy on left is just like one layer and the girl on the right is one layer?
Well, there are many, many layers.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really like you say the guy arm one left.
right.
Like, so we have this part, and then we have this part, and the hands, and each finger, like oof, all the layering. But it's super helpful, especially when I get these files to myself. I'm like, oh, thank you. I know exactly how to rig this, and it's so much easier.
Yeah, and I feel like that's such a big part of it, is being able to put yourself in the shoes of who you're passing it off to and being like, how would I want it if I were to receive it? And I think that makes you a stronger illustrator, because then you're able to be a contributor to someone to make their life easier, which is always great.
Yeah. That's also one of the strongholds, I feel like, being an illustrator and motion, that you can understand the process and also be able to, of course you need a blinking like eyelids thing closed as an
Right.
animator, or you need the hand to be open and closed. Like, it's so nice to just have the assets ready.
Yeah. By the way, in the chat, Jess is saying, love your style. Your art is cute and incredible.
Thank you.
And people are also talking about how big this turkey is and how great the wine glasses are.
Nice.
So I think this one's definitely a hit. But this is all making me think of kind of like how you got to where you are now. And we do have a segment here on Offset that we like to do called From This to That. And if you're down with it, I'd love to bring up some of your old work and look at kind of how it's transformed into what you do now.
Yes, let's go.
Let's roll it.
From this to that.
So you were kind enough to send over some older pieces alongside some newer pieces. So the way that I set up these slides is, on the left, I have your older pieces. On your right, you have some newer pieces. This is a series on the left that we have. I've used it for a few different ones, where you're then going to be able to kind of see the different forms of it, and then have the ones on the right. I included these two together particularly because you have this animal behind the main character on the left, and then you can kind of see that you're then also using these animals over on the right, and they're, you know, anthropomorphized, and you're also like taking new leaps and steps with things with anatomy. And I guess I'll let you talk to it, but when you see these two together, what do you think?
Oh, it was such a long time ago.
Who's the one from the left from? It's from like 2017, right?
Yeah, 2017. It was. I had a really big idea to make, the 36 days of type
Yeah.
challenge. Yeah, I wanted to do that, but with illustrations instead. So this is supposed to be Aladdin for A.
Okay.
My interpretation back then, but you can see, like, I had such a thing for the noses that just have a special colors.
Yeah.
And the really, really small hands, and the feet that are not feet. The body proportions are really off. But it's really fun to see them as well, because I had such a lovely time with them, and I learned so much about body proportions and different poses. I think these are all based on actual references that I pulled up on the internet and just worked from there. but you can really see how the different, you can still see like some of my style in the first one, I would say, but it has really evolved to having more thickening like limbs, and especially the backgrounds I worked more with, and being more comfortable with the program and doing more details. On the left one I used Photoshop, but on the right one I used on Illustrator.
Oh, okay.
More like shapes and clean cuts. And also I feel like in my old illustrations I used a lot of textures that really didn't have a meaning, that didn't make any sense, but just had it there just to have something on it because it was cool. No,
Right.
really.
I feel like that was also something that all of us were kind of going through in the 2010s, was the idea of suddenly this great library of textures that we could suddenly add, because I feel like in the early 2000s we were just trying to figure out how to make things digital, and you didn't really even make that connection of the intersection between referencing physical. And then we went a little too crazy in 2010s. And then now we're kind of coming back around. We're like, textures are still very cool, but you have to use them intentionally and add them to the pieces with intent.
Exactly. So I feel like, as you can see, more wooden texture on the actual table, that makes sense. But having the little watercolor splashes here and there I don't think you can see it so clearly because it's very, very light. But it's there, and
it's subtlety. Subtlety goes a long way. I think that there's a lot of really cute details you've also added to this piece on the right that wasn't necessarily as present in the one on the left. Like something as simple as a band-aid on a hand is a small idea, or I really like these mugs around the tail on the right. They just add extra personality and care, and you can see that you've really absorbed yourself in the world building of the illustration that you were creating. That said, people are still complimenting you on your work on your left. Bai says that they really like the one on the left, and I think they both have merit and value. It's just interesting to see how you've kind of grown from there. I am curious as to, when it comes to 36 Days of Type, and we'll come back actually because this one's also 36 Days of Type. With 36 Days of Type, how was that project for you? How was doing a letter a day and an illustration a day? Did you learn a lot from it? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it?
It was a lot of fun. As I can remember, it was I think the toughest was to come up with I wanted an animated movie to each letter. It was so hard with the X's and the Y's and Z's. Is there anyone? So that was a lot of Googling. But it was really fun in a sense to explore a new take of each character. Like, this is C for Cinderella, and it's not the typical Cinderella we think of, in my opinion. But I wanted to bring out the movement and like the essential story of each character. Like when she lost her little shoe, and for Aladdin, like when he was jumping, it was very lively in that sense. So I wanted to bring that out. So I think I really rewatched a couple movies just to get the actual character feeling. So that was
36 days of movies then suddenly turned into a viewing marathon.
Definitely. It was so fun. But I kind of like these kind of challenges that you have to do something every day. It's a good way to like keep you accountable and do your own stuff.
That comes from the straight A student in your blood.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
it's just
all the tutorials. Like, I had to do one tutorial every day. Even if they are 3 hours long, I can do it for 2 days.
I can do it. I can make it happen. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
And this one on the right. What is this one on the right from?
Oh yeah, it was actually inspired by my real life late night session. So it was not. I wasn't writing anything, but I was drawing, and I didn't feel like it worked. So But
I love the stretching cat.
Yeah, the cat that keeps you company. I wish I had a cat, but I'm just drawing a lot of cats, so I feel like I have one.
It's the metaverse cat for you.
Yeah.
Wade, thank you so much for calling out some YouTube chat. Apparently over on YouTube, Sophie said, "You rock, Caroline. So proud of you." I also said Caroline. I keep meaning to say Caroline, and I'm so sorry. But he says, "You rock, Caroline." And then also Wade is saying, Ryan just described why you should always evaluate trends before using them. And sometimes it's hard, though. It's really hard to be able to identify a trend because sometimes you think, oh, this is just what we're doing moving forward, you know? Because if everyone's doing it, it's kind of just in the public, not zeitgeist, but the public like consciousness. And so it's so easy to identify once we're past them, but when you're in the moment, it's so hard to be like, this is new and probably won't last.
Yeah. Let's see how long this gradient trend is going.
Oh, gradient trend is going so long. I could have sworn that when Instagram rebranded to gradient back in like 2015, I was like, this isn't going to last 2 years. And now, you know, we're almost 10 years and it's still happening.
But it's fun. Like, it's a good way to test out new techniques and things like that.
Yeah. And also be able to really take advantage of the really high quality and bright screens we have. And I feel like we're just getting more and more screens in our day-to-day life. So we're able to use more saturated colors. Speaking of which, this one on the right, like the orange of the character leaning over the sofa is so bright, but it's so balanced with like the yellow shoes and the yellow hair and the red shirts that you have of the people sitting on the sofa. And I can, as you were saying, you were talking about the background and how you pay more attention to them. It's so obvious in this one. Like you even only have the rain isolated to the small area in the center and these big open colors on the side on the left. But then on the right, you know, you even have like this curtain that's just like slightly going off to the side. What's this one on the right? Was this one just made for fun or was this made for a project?
I was rewatching Friends and I wanted to capture the moment. I didn't want it to last though. So I wanted to make my own take of the Friends cast, and these like outfits are all based on the actual clothes wearing. I think some colors are changed just to match this, but these are legit, and this is that cafe they always drink at as well.
Yeah, what's that called? It's called like the Perk. Is it
Central Perk?
Central Perk, yeah. I've never even really watched Friends, but it's always kind of been around me. Like I can definitely tell that the top left is Phoebe, right? Thing, probably singing about Smelly Cat. And it's really cool because it's just being able to go through and identify everybody. I also love the decisions that you made with proportions. Like the heads are so tiny. And they've got such long arms, but it all feels like it makes sense because it's consistent to the illustration, which is cool.
And it was very fun to try this out, and especially such a large scene with all the details and backgrounds and furnitures. That's also they are so famous, the characters as well, and everyone knows them. So it was very hard to capture their personalities.
And their essence means different things to different people. So I think that's also, it plays a part into how you kind of have to represent them because you're also doing, you know, your piece of it.
Definitely. I think when I look at this little hamburger girl, I usually call her that. She's actually based on a real girl I saw one autumn when outside, and she was wearing this little hamburger raincoat. It was so cute, and I needed to draw her. I also think there was a time where the It movie came out, so
with Pennywise and everything.
And I was dreading for that movie so much. I'm really bad with horror movies. So
do you like them or do you hate them?
I hate them. Oh my god, I cried so much at the cinema. Oh my god.
But you still went. You still saw
it. It was a bet with my boyfriend. He dragged me there. I was like, fine, I'm gonna go. And I was screaming like the entire movie. And I even sat there until the movie ended because I was like hyperventilated.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I would love to see though an illustrative representation of some horror movies that you've seen and like what you take away from it, because it would be cool to see your cute style represent something as, you know, macabre as It or something. But I also don't want to trigger you and have you like have to revisit these horrible movies that you're scared of.
Well, I'm getting better, I guess. No, but it was a very, very fun little project I had. I think I made even a little series with these little rain people because I really like the raincoats and things like that and the little details. But you can definitely see it needed more background, something to like identify where she was, what happened, the story behind it, what's going on, why she's standing there in the rain with the puppy just staring at you. It's a lot of like questions that it's unanswered. But the friends one, you can see, okay, this is friends, they are having a nice time, you can see the location. So I feel like during these years I really evolved in that kind of storytelling within the illustrations, and also the colors are more vibrant and balanced in a sense.
Yeah, I think there's like getting yourself immersed into the environment that you're creating. I think is also, it just goes such a long way. I have this guy, but I don't know if they're going to actually animate. They're not going to animate, so I'm also going to pull it up. But these are two different actually motions from this to that you were kind enough to send over.
Yeah.
And on the left, you have this in the air epic kick, and then on the right, you've got a little bit more realistic of, all right, I'm sitting at a computer.
Yeah.
What was the one on the left from?
The left one was actually from a self-defense class I went and got really inspired. I felt like, oh, I'm strong now. Let's draw that.
Is this left one a self-portrait?
Kinda-ish.
This is you flying through the air?
It wasn't that. I felt like that, but I definitely wasn't doing that.
What I really like about this one is just like the loopability of it and the idea that, yes, flying through the air, but you have this subtle movement even in like the leg is kind of just ever so slightly bobbing. And you do such a great job at making it feel like we're like you are in the air and you're stuck, but you're still moving even though you're not. Like, I'm not expecting for you to hit anything, but I'm like also not expecting you to land, and I'm also understanding that you are still in the air moving, which I think is a tough balance, and it's kind of contradictory on itself. But I also like how many times you added variables to the fabric, where this like wave distort is not the same as this one or that, because when you're flying through the air, it's everything isn't a singular wave, So I was impressed and surprised that this was from this and this wasn't to that. Because in the one you had this one right as the to that.
Because this one I feel like it's more story and it's more this was the GIF one, the short version. The longer one, you can see more animation on it. I think it's on my Instagram, but it's more fun because you have a more storytelling that I'm playing with this dog, and it grows bigger and changes different colors in the longer version. So it has more sense in that and more details in the background. And something bugged me with the little feet that was just floating. It was another frame rate with the waves. If I remember correctly, I cell animated that. So I think they were.
Oh, really? Did you cell animate within Photoshop?
Yeah, and I pulled it into there.
Very cool. By the way, Jeff Yas is saying, love the kicking self-portrait. I agree. Wow. You added motion to everything. Yeah, to everything. Even the plant, even the wheels, everything moves so subtly, but it doesn't feel overwhelming, which is a tough thing to pull off. Do you generally animate using a stylus?
Yes, always. I barely know how to use them off.
Ergonomic mouse that I always use. What draws you to using a stylus when you're animating? Is it just like out of habit because you're used to illustrating, or do you find benefits from using a stylus over a mouse?
I think it's just a habit. I don't like mouses. I don't like how they feel with my hand. I don't know if it feels disgusting. I'm sorry.
Disgusting. Wow.
just for me, but I really like just the stylus in the sense that I can jump back and forth from illustrating to like animation and have my other hand pretty free to do whatever I want. So I think it's a habit, and what I understood, it's stylus is it's better for your hand, not that damaging.
Right.
What I've heard, not sure if that's true.
No, it has validity. I mean, our hands aren't supposed to move in the way that they do for mice. So I feel like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
This is another old one from yours. This is the last one from this set that we have, and this is a bird that you sent over. It's kind of dissolving into the air. Lots of cool things going on here, though. The particles that are moving around have trails, kind of accent the other motion that's going on. What's the concept and idea behind this guy?
I don't think there was one. It was a internal challenge between me and a friend that we wanted to back then we had, I think, a monthly challenge that we picked a theme and then we just made something out of it. And he was talking about how he hated these trends with flamingos, so I drew a flamingo just to mess with him. But I really wanted to try out all the different techniques here, like with the cell animation, and you can see it's pretty stiffy, like it's not as flowy as the other. And I saw some tutorial about particles and how to play with them to make this little dot a little bit more playful, so I put it in here as well. And I wanted to bring out some more liveliness with the leaves and things, so they are just path and rotation, and it's not super smooth and solid. I don't know. It's pretty old. I think this was from 2017, if I remember correctly.
So it's just amazing. That's 6 years ago, but that's fine. No big deal. I'm not freaking out if you're not freaking out. And then the one that we have in comparison to that one is another bird illustration that we have. And these guys are so freaking cute. They're big, scary eyes. And they're landing and taking off, and no one is feeding the children that are begging for food. Is this also just something that you made in your personal time?
Yeah, I had some spare times between feedback sessions, and so I really like to do a lot of personal illustrations and animations as a way to just come out of my shell and try out different techniques and things like that. This was part of it, because I don't like to waste my time, so I want to do something at the same time. So such a workaholic, but yeah.
No, I mean, hey, if it works, it got you to art. So if that's what continues to grow your skill, then if it works for you, I think that's great.
I think it's also super important to do that, because I personally feel like whenever I get the client feedback, things like that, like sometimes can be a little bit harsh or whatever, I don't take it as personal, because I have my own outlet for my creativity. So I have like this Instagram channel where I put out these silly little things, and this is what makes me happy. This is what I enjoy. So if I get a feedback from a client that maybe say, "Oh, I don't like these colors," it's fine, because it's the client's project.
Yeah, it's not your project. It's
exactly
for someone else.
Exactly. So this, I feel like it's super nice to have this outlet to work with my personal styles and try out. And this is
I really like it.
Really cute.
I want to see more of these birds. They have more to them. I just know it. They almost feel like a little video game almost. Not Angry Birds, but just their own little birds.
Little birdies.
We are exploring the inside of your mind, though, which I'm having a very good time doing. And I would love to see kind of like where you get to these spaces, in your process. So let's check out what's in your sketchbook.
Ooh, what's in your sketchbook?
So you're kind enough to kind of share your process here. Both of these are actually preliminary to the very final piece, which I actually have on the next slide. But I can see that you have 3 different approaches here. You have the purple, which I guess is the foreground. You have the black, which is the midground, and then you have green in the background.
Nice.
Now, is this kind of a touched up version of a sketch, or are you really particular kind of about like, this is the composition that I'm going to have, and you kind of stick to it?
No, this is just pretty rough, actually.
Really? Wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. It was a little bit touched up for Instagram.
Right.
I'm gonna be honest, but otherwise it's pretty not as clean in the sense that I usually don't clean out the background extra strokes there. But otherwise it's pretty much the same. And the concept here was I wanted to try out I wanted to draw more animals, but not the usual cat and dog. So I realized I've never drawn a tiger before. So I want to make a tiger. And it was this time when I wanted to try out making posters as well. So that was a challenge to make an animal that is fun enough to cover a whole poster. And a poster is usually easier for me personally to make in vector. So that was also the challenge, how to translate this very geometrical shapes, but also having some kind of organic vibe and make that convert into vector, and also adding gradients on it.
Yeah, gradients.
Yeah.
But these don't feel like gimmicky gradients. These are nice ones that feel like they add to the piece and add depth. Griffin's actually even calling it out and saying, I love the gradients and colors. Paloma was also loving this first piece. And it's really nice that, and Bruce will say, funny love the sketch, might be the flowy line work. Now, you spoke of how it was kind of difficult to make that transition into vectors and gradients. Was there anything else that you learned while you were creating this piece? Like, I see that you have this really cool blue in place of the midsection of the tiger. How did that come to be?
I think it was an accident.
Yeah.
Happy accident. Yeah. It was very fun. I don't think it was supposed to be blue, but it was probably just the little dump from another place. The one filled one is actually in Photoshop. So I just wanted to try out the colors there and see how they worked with the gradients and things like that.
And then it turned into this bad boy.
Yeah. So the color is quite similar, but more saturated. I used a little trick that I might show off later in this little live stream.
But I love the contrast that was really brought up here. It seems like maybe even the oh no, it's just how it was. I was gonna say maybe the pose was even dramatized, but between the sketch and the second, you kicked out his leg a little bit more on the bottom there. But I think that it's a great lively pose. It's not traditional in the sense of like what I would expect to see a tiger in that position, but I believe it and I like it.
Yeah, it was really interesting to play around with all these different shapes and make sure that it's interesting and fills out the whole like poster. So it's not no empty spaces and it's more balanced and you always have something interesting to look at.
Yeah.
And also to make sure the colors are spread out. So the yellow isn't only on one side, but also in the bottom and
the particles do a great job at really spreading that out too, because you have it in the tail and the ear, but then the particles kind of they fill the space for where it isn't present elsewhere, which is nice.
Yes, it was very fun. Also to make sure that you've drawn into the eye as well, so it's clean cut there, so you know the focus.
The piercing eye.
Yeah.
Next up, we have these adorable little cats, but these are different animals and dogs than we've seen in previous, because these are very human, kind of like your diner piece. Where are these from? What is the options between the three? How did you explore? How do you feel about them?
This is actually a client project for a startup that they wanted to have their mascots with a dog and a cat. So it was a perfect project for me.
You really do need to get you a dog or a cat. It really seems like you're itching for a dog or a cat.
No, but I'm allergic. That's
no. Okay. All right. I understand.
So that's why I'm been like, I need this in my life, but I can't have it. Oh well. So the idea here was to make sure that the dog was more lively and the cat more proper, which they are not really shown here, but that was one of the feedback I got from the client.
Okay.
And they wanted a really, really sketchy versions. That was the whole type of style they wanted. And make sure they're kind of human, but not too human, which is a very hard balance. So you don't go into that furry space. It was really hard.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's such a new conflict to have. Not to shame anyone for any sort of like idealization of furry identity, but it's something that's so unique and specific that like you don't want to accidentally dip your toe into an area where you don't want to have that representation.
Exactly.
And you don't at the same time, like, it's like, oh, adorable cute little animals are great for brands, but you don't want to accidentally label a brand as a furry brand.
Yeah, exactly. So I tried out the different versions here. As you can see, for A cat, it's still standing on all four legs.
Yeah.
And B dog is very doggy. Like
very doggy.
Dog
also kind of cousin It from like Addams Family, kind of.
Yeah, that's true. True. And the C was more a wild card to see if they wanted to go more like childlike, which they didn't. But oh well.
And drum roll, let's see what it turned into. This one.
A, the final one. They kept the dog from A, I think, version A. So it was a very sporty and very active dog with a little bag.
And B kind of was mostly for the cat.
Yeah, it was also A, but slimmed version and more proper. But they wanted the cat to be more smarter and the dog more sporty.
Well, the cat has a bow tie, so that tells me that they mean business.
Yes, exactly. And it's a cloth on the side.
I also really like how you did it all in blue. Do you generally sketch in different colors, or is it just in this case, was it unique to the brand for the blue?
It was unique to the brand, but usually I started to sketch in colors. I don't know if it's more fun and just change it up. Sometimes I do in black, but when I start in black, I tend to add colors while adding some foregrounds or some details, or for instance, for the sketches with the tiger you saw, I had different colors for the foreground and background just to remind myself.
No, yeah, I do the same thing. Bruce loves the socks. I also like the socks, the mismatched socks. Jess is saying you're a Zen fun guru, taking notes. And also Umacorn saying that she really likes the bow tie for the proper, as does Felix. So this one seems to be a hit. It looks great. One more that we have, and I do have the animation for this one as well, but this one is you detailed so well in the breakdown as to kind of how you got from the very sketch to the final. We have 4 different steps. These are the first 2. What is this project, and how did it begin, and how did you approach it?
This project was actually a request from a friend who wanted to help out the locals during the pandemic, the local restaurants. Unfortunately, it got canceled, but it was very, very fun to work with. So he wanted 3 different dishes, and he wanted a loop between them, and possibly have the hashtag support your local on it. So of course I needed to add sushi. It's so good. And it was very important to me to have hands that were, you can definitely tell it was different people eating it. So this was
I like
very
the little
important.
hairy wrist, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. The dad hands.
It's subtle. It's nice.
Yeah. And I wanted to add a lot of motion and try out and really challenge myself with the cell animation here.
Paloma says that they love sushi, and they just had some this week, and they love the color and the feeling and the movement of this.
Nice.
So, as does Bruce. And Abdurrahman says really love it too. Then we have this crazy rough, which is fun. And this was just you experimenting in between the shapes of the hands, right?
Yeah, shapes of the hands and see how it flows. It was really interesting to convert like a bone to a cup to a plate. Like, how can I do that? How can I make sure the hands disappear and the food doesn't look weird and crazy? And the straw was a nightmare.
Yeah.
To
Well,
make.
the straw turns into chops. The chopsticks turn into straw, and then
Yeah.
the straw kind of just spins around until it's gone, right?
Yeah. It's a-
Which is done in such a way that you don't even notice it. Like nothing really kind of just magically disappears. I mean, it does, but it not in a way that breaks the illusion.
Mhm.
And then obviously you have the different colors for the different items. That way, while you were creating it, you could keep track of what is what.
Yeah.
When you were creating this, did you work in a linear fashion and just continued to go until you reached the next spot, or did you kind of do like the first frame, the last frame, then in between that, and then kind of divide up in between? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm used both.
Okay.
For the larger parts, from like the plate to the circles and things like that, that's more like step down, key, note each for each, making sure that it makes sense, the timing is right. But for instance, for the little tomatoes that, here and goes away, this is more linear and flowy.
Oh, cool. And then you didn't draw this in After Effects, right? This was just like Photoshop.
Yeah,
Okay.
all Photoshop.
Well, and then I guess just use the timeline tool and just like switching through. Both Umacorn and Griffin were both asking how you kind of got from there to here, and that's really cool. So, without further ado, we should check out the final piece,
Yes.
which is beautiful. And I like all the different hands that you have, even when they're mixed hands, like here and here. I think that's a really cool way to show that it's not just one person flipping through all of it. And I also love the introduction of the green for the leaves in the last piece that kind of resonate or replicate in the strawberry of the drink.
Thank you. It was really challenged with the hands. I remember that. It was such a struggle to make sure they flowed right, and it kept its shape and everything.
But I'm also so surprised that you haven't mentioned any struggle with any of the liquid. Like the liquid looks so good, and I would imagine it'd be so hard, but you haven't even seemed phased by it, which is interesting.
No, the liquid was pretty chill actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I usually draw a lot of flowy things, like the flowy fabric and that. So that wasn't the issue. It was more hands. That was the issue.
I mean, well, you nailed it. This is such a great piece. You should be really proud of this one. And it's also really cool that you're able to show and share with us how it kind of came to be with everything else.
It was super fun.
Thank you so much. We are about an hour into our show, and we like to do a thing called Monkey Pause, which you're either welcome to do along to give yourself a stretch, or you can also take the time to take a break. But let's hop into it. Got a little too excited about that. Forgot to turn off the looping for it, so it just continued to go. But Monkey Pause, it is originally taught to me from Anna Davis Court. It is a nice exercise that you can do in your own time, as long as you want. If you do it more frequently, it helps you out. But basically, when you're working with your hands all the time, you want to make sure that you're taking care of them. They are portals for a lot of us as artists to be able to transform what's in our head out to the client, and you want to make sure you don't get carpal tunnel or tendonitis or some sort of issue that prevents you from being able to do your work. And so these are just some really easy exercises that you can do whenever you remember to. I also like to take this moment to say, save your work if you're working on anything right now. Also get up and stretch, drink water, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. We've been live for an hour and a half, and you've just been sitting there. Your body has been doing the same thing for an hour and a half. Well, no, actually, we've only been live for an hour, but the point remains the same. So the first thing that we're going to do, it's a four-part thing, okay? What you're going to do is you're going to take both your hands, you're going to put them out in front of you like this. Okay? Like this. And I'm going to do them towards the camera, but you just extend them fully, and then you're going to bring in your hands like this and go ooh, ooh, ah, ah. I've been told that the noise makes a big deal. If you don't do the noise, it's not going to work. So you go in, and you release. Then you're going to go down, kind of like a zombie, and then bring it in. But brains. You can kind of feel it too. If it hurts at any point, please stop. Not a medical professional. Just this is what I've learned for it. And so I normally feel this one in my thumbs, like the thumb tendon that goes down the side. You release it. You're gonna flip it over like this, as if you're giving them away. I give you my monkey paws, and bring them in again. And release, and then bring it towards yourself. Bring it in. Oh, this one's always the one that always feels the most. Serious. You want to shake it up. Shake your body up. Do some neck rolls. You can do this as many times as you want. The thing is, I normally just do them twice here while we're here on stream, just to kind of do it. And then whenever I see these takeovers, my hands always feel so much better by the end of the week. So we'll just do part 1 again. Release. Part 2. Flip it out. And flip it in. Shake it up. Feel all good. And that's monkey paws for you. Normally, I think Anna says to do it like 3 or 4 times. I said we just did it twice, but it's a good way to just, 1, remember to take care of yourself, and 2, to actually just take care of your hands, because it's a lot harder to do stuff when you don't have your hands. Just trust me on that one. That said, we have about 30 minutes left with Caroline. We've got some cool stuff still planned for you guys. I think we'll probably hop into some inspiration of hers, so we can do a little thing called Art Talk. Welcome back.
Thank you. What an intro.
Yeah. Just a little dramatic, not too much. But you're kind of have to send over 2 different names of people that have really inspired you in art that you really like. And this first one is a Norwegian textile artist, Synnøve Anker Arudal.
Hard name.
This is also a great portrait of her. I love the fact that this is like her go-to portrait. How long have you known about her? What inspires you about her? I also have some of her work I can kind of scroll through as we talk a bit. But why was this the first name that you sent over?
Well, actually, I was in Norway quite recently, like last year, somewhere, and I saw her exhibition at the museum called Astrup Fearnley Museet. I had this written down because it was a hard name. But basically, it's a modern art museum in Oslo. Super gorgeous, very cool building. You should go there. But her art really stood out to me because it was all in textile, and it was it's super cool and modern. It feels like it can be sold and printed out today, even though it's like 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
She's such a great textile artist that, as I mentioned before, I really like to work with yarn and super nerdy about that. So this was extra special to me to see how she worked with different materials. She used some of these pieces. She even uses glass and metals in it. And these are like enormous pieces. They're several meters long and tall and like basically carpets, giant.
Were
carpets.
they just like hung on the wall when you went to go see the pieces?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Like that, it's so gorgeous, and I just love her way to like how she manipulates the fabric and the textiles to make these kind of weird shapes, and especially this piece is so fun. And I think it's called something about many suits or office plan, and you can totally see that it's so in
like a non-traditional way too.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not the stuffy way that you would normally think of men in suits. It still has that vibe to it, but it at the same time is really good at challenging preconceived ideas and compositions based off of the subject material, which is cool.
Definitely, and it feels at the same time a little bit empty. Like you can see the shallowness of office workers. So sorry to all office workers, but if you can understand what I mean, it's more that kind of vibe she wanted to perceive, I guess. Super cool.
Absolutely. And then there's these, which are very different from the previous one because these feel very abstract. And these feel more separate from your work. So I was really interested to hear what you take away from these. I could see maybe the colors.
Yeah.
How do you relate to these pieces?
Definitely the colors. I really, really like them. And that I really want them in my house, to be honest. Maybe that, like, I want these. But the colors are so great. I love how she combined everything and made that it worked. Even though, as I spoke before, I try to make sure that the colors are even, but for the one on the left, you see the orange yellow one, it's just in the corner, and it works. It totally works. It's so crazy. And I love
some type in there, which is crazy.
Yeah. She liked to combine in type in these things, and personally, I'm not that big a fan of type in text because I'm not that good at writing type myself.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but thanks God for Adobe font.
Yeah. I also really like how it's challenging the idea of what a textile artist is, because I, obviously think of like fabrics and you think of ornate designs or you think of big splashes of color, but these are really abstract pieces that continue to challenge a medium. Reverb Mike says it reminds me of Rothko, which is, this is a pretty good idea. Next up, we have Wilhelm Ludstrom. You picked two people with O's with slashes in their names.
Non-Swedish ones as well. This is also same story that I went to the Copenhagen Museum, Statens Museum for Kunst. Super nice. And I saw this guy and I got so in love with his pieces. It was the one that introduced humanism into Denmark, and you can totally see that vibe, but also the colors. Like, look at these colors. Oh,
there's gradients in there. There's some gradients. I see some gradients.
Yeah, gradients. So modern. But I love how he really emphasizes by using the orange and yellows, and you totally see the focus, but also you can see how this can be translated into digital art very easily, with all the geometric shapes and how he uses the shadows to see the little curves. I'm thinking of the left one with the little cam thingy.
Yeah.
And it's super nice way to work with gradients and make sure it gets depth despite of being so flat.
The flatness is something that reminds me a lot also of one of the previous pieces that we looked at from this to that. I keep coming back to this one. This is one of my favorite ones of yours on the right. With this flatness of the idea of like it's kind of top down, but it also has depth to it. I feel like there's a lot to be seen in the comparison of these two, which is really cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
So who knew? You're a cubist.
I guess.
And then finally, I also really like the idea of these ways that he approaches humans as well, because yes, like it is anatomically correct, but he uses these big planes of color, which I think also align a lot with your work and the idea of like really accentuating long arms and long legs. And even if these are ones that are anatomically correct, it still feels as if maybe they're not. And Jess is saying, I love the colors, the woman, her eyes, the shades. Which is all great pieces to take away.
So great artist. Rest in peace.
Right. I mean, it seems like you guys got good museums out there. I gotta get over to Sweden soon.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Next thing I would love to talk about is I know that speaking of inspiration, you have some art books that you have in your collection.
Yes.
And if you would be so kind as to share them, we'd love to see them.
Could I see your collection?
All right. So first up, we have Heat by Yin Wei. So it's actually a comic, and she's a really cool artist, and you can see definitely why I like her. It's very simple, very clean, and she got animals that come on.
Yeah.
So this is about this fire demon that comes into a farm and just chills at the farm, like learns to cook and take care of like hens, and super cute little story.
Now, for
So,
the inside, is it mostly stick to the same color palette of orange, yellow, and white?
yeah.
Oh,
Like, you
wow.
see here, it's such a really
Oh,
diverse
food. There's food. I see food. I see some
Ooh.
crossover with the one that you have. Now,
Mhm.
I also see that you have some bookmarked there with the top of your tabs. Is that just from projects where you kind of want to remember pieces that you really like?
It was actually for this. It was a showcase, like some of my favorite frames here.
Oh, great.
So this one I really like because it's so simple and clean.
And it has a dog.
Yeah, it has a dog. I love how she just blends in the scene here. You can see the dog noses, but it's not cut out. It's just
Wow.
part of it. Just these subtle details are super, super nice. You can see here she added some details so you can see the scorches of the fire demon landing on the field. It's so nice.
So is the white coming up? Is that like smoke coming from the crater that the person is like then like curled up in?
Yeah.
That's really cool. But then your brain is also able to say like, okay, this is where the frame ends and this is where the dog's snout begins.
Yeah.
Even
Super
though
nice.
she didn't have to do that.
And it's also the same thing here with the depth perspective, even though this is so flat over here, but this is so, like, you see the perspective that the
Right.
dog is above the demon. So she's so talented, super clever. And another frame that I really liked is, let me show you this part. I think it's so clever of her to have this very typical comic stripe boxes
Yeah.
and then cut it off with very, very open, like just almost icons that she showcases.
It almost
Love
feels
to-
kind of like a sketchbook suddenly in its openness. But I think that it's really honing in on the idea that this character it's like an egg, right?
Yeah,
And it's really examining the egg and kind of shutting everything else out in their world and just looking at it. I really like the eye blink.
it's so
just- yeah.
simple and you
So
get
simple.
so much from it. It's amazing. I love
How did you find this book? How did you find this artist?
I went to a comic festival in Sweden. So, and they had it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Just
Can you
simple.
remind me of the artist's name one more time?
Yin Wei.
Jean Wei. All right, I will put that in the chat for you guys if you guys want to check her out. That's really cool. That's really good. I can definitely see the crossover with your style as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, next one we have here another Finnish one.
Oh, it's a heavy one. That's a big one.
Yeah, it's Heikkala.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
Alright.
super great Finnish artist who very inspired by Japanese culture.
Yeah. I'm
combined
getting
with-
Ghibli vibes. But I think that might also just be because I'm thinking of like Kiki's Delivery Service.
very kiki. A lot of
wow,
witches,
that
a lot
is
of like animals. And this is all analog. So crazy.
That's crazy. And even just like the yellows are so limited, but they're balanced throughout the page, which is really cool.
Yes, this is amazing. Her work and her process. Also, if you want to know about more analog work and inspiration, this is a great book because she goes through her process, different materials she uses, and inspiration, and where she started from. So it's great.
Also, it's not even just pieces of inspiration. It also has text that kind of walks you through different things.
Definitely.
Oh, that's
Here
great.
is another frame where she shows how she works.
That's
Super.
remarkable.
And a very in-depth text here with different steps as well.
I've never seen an art book like that where it actually has like pictures of process going through and walking you through. That's very cool.
It's really cool.
Mike says, remind me of Hilda. Yes, I can also see that. Jess agrees with Kiki. Which, total side note, this is definitely like a deviation, but I just watched on YouTube part of the new amusement park that just opened in Japan.
Yeah.
They don't have any rides or anything. It's just like immersive art. It's really interesting. You guys should check it out on YouTube. They can't film everything, but it's interesting to see. Side note, doesn't matter.
But here's another frame I really like how she shows her sketches.
Oh, very cool. Yeah,
She-
it's so weird how it's such a polished book, but it's also very raw and authentic.
Yeah, look at all
Um,
the roughness here. And this one is especially so rough. And I think
Yeah.
it's so cool that she showcases this.
It takes a certain level of confidence, which she clearly deserves to have. It's just really refreshing to see that.
Hey Kalla, check her out. She has a lot of like time lapses and loops on her Instagram. So you
Oh,
can
cool.
see the whole process, how she works. And I think she also has a YouTube, so she goes more in depth.
So yeah, I put the name of that one in the chat as well. Art of Hikala. Is Hikala her name?
I'm not sure.
Let's see.
But I think it's more her
Her art pseudonym or whatever.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's remarkable. Great. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I know there was one thing that you wanted to share of a trick of yours.
Yes.
Which we would love to see, which we have a goofy little segment called I Didn't Know That Was There. What? I didn't know that was there. Oh gosh, it's beautiful. I'm so excited about it. And so we're in Photoshop right now?
Yes, in Photoshop, and I thought like might as well show the breakdown a little bit on this piece. Another tiger.
Great, different tiger, totally different vibe. I mean, not totally different vibe. It still has a lot of the same, but also you like approached it in another new way, which is really neat.
Super fun. This was actually a clutch project for Chinese New Year. I wanted to celebrate it in some way and wanted another tiger. So this was quite stressful to make, actually. So that's why the sketch is a little bit messy. I wanted to, you can see here, it's not as clean. I haven't touched up this at all. And I really wanted to try out this new format that just shows half of the tiger in the first post of on Instagram and the second here. So that's why we have a line here. But I wanted to showcase this one especially because I started out, usually when I start on an illustration post, it's either sketch first or color first. So in this case, I actually had color first. And these 4 colors were picked up from another art book that I have, or not the art book, but more a dictionary of colors. It's called A Dictionary of Color Combinations by Sei Gensha. It's a very, very neat little dictionary that has different kind of color combination and super neat, super nice. So sometimes when I feel a bit of a slump and need some inspiration, I just check there and pick a color combination I like and go from there.
A dictionary of color combinations?
Yes.
All right, I'll put that in the chat for everybody.
Do it.
And so you pulled those colors based off of like readings from that.
Yeah.
And then how did you kind of go about applying that to the rest of your illustration?
So I wanted to pick up something orange and something black, obviously for the stripes. But the green part was the one that inspired me to give out this weird nature vibes and also this little not as natural flower color. So I started with that and then kind of end up with this little thing. And yeah, tried out and deviated a little bit from these color combinations. You can see this green is not the same as any green here, but I wanted more muted and explore a bit about that. But when I finished, when I got to this stage of the illustration, I felt that something was a little bit off, even though I like the colors. I don't know, it feels like it's blending a little bit. The tiger is not standing out as much as I want to. It feels like I'm looking more at the flower or something else. So a neat trick I have is this. Just adding a little layer of black and white. And suddenly you can see how the tiger just blends into the background, in a sense. And this has been a really, really big game changer for my illustrations, since this helps out with the values of the colors and the saturation so much. totally see like how this part, it's not almost identical. Like the tiger is part of the background, and I don't want that. So a simple, quick fix to it is just to play with the curves, and
Oh, smart.
here you can see the tigers is not part of the the background anymore. And here's
And
the
then you
end.
turn it off.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. So then it's just basically whenever you're approaching and coloring a piece, you'll color it just normally. Then you'll add black and white so that you can kind of see it in a new perspective of like, it's almost kind of like flipping the canvas to see proportions or something.
exactly.
And then you'll do the curves underneath that black and white to then modify it. And then you turn the black and white off. And then at that point, then you know that it's closer to a more digestible contrast.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly
really
like
smart. That's really cool.
It's so such a simple trick. So
Yeah.
easy. Because it's so clear when you don't have it, and then I can totally see now.
Yeah.
Such a simple trick.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great. And also, I really like this piece. It's really cool. Now this was Tiger. So Tiger was like last year, right?
Yeah.
Was this from last year? Okay, cool. So, do you have any plans of doing anything for February this year?
Yes and no. I I have one prepared, but I kind of want to post it tonight. So
Oh, okay. Wow. So, I mean, get ahead of it, and it works
Yeah.
for me. Also, Bruce says, would be cool to see this in a color lookup layer. Ooh, which I'm not sure what do you mean by that, but I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But that just about puts us at time, though, unless there's anything else that you want to share that I am forgetting, which I can't think of. Are you available for any freelance work or anything?
For now, I'm booked until end of February. But after February, feel
I mean,
free.
that's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
And you're mostly looking for both illustration jobs and motion jobs, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
And it
that's
doesn't
really-
mind if it's both. But
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. But I wasn't sure if you had a preference on any of them either, because obviously you have a talent in both of them. Also, Mike wanted to know if you were ever on Doodle Therapy with Alice Lee. I don't know if that means anything to you. You're
no,
not? Oh,
actually.
okay.
Sounds fun though. Doodle.
Yeah, maybe it's like a similar style or something. And Jess also really liked the little poles and fireflies around the tiger of your piece.
Thank you.
And let's see. This would help with checking colors for accessibility. Oh yeah, and Jeff is also mentioning that your black and white check is also very helpful with accessibility of just making sure everyone can actually see it, because we all have different color blindness and visibilities. And there's even a thing of like I keep talking about all the YouTubes that I'm watching, but there is certain countries that have like a more limited understanding and language around color.
Yeah.
And I think it's like green in particular for some reason, like isn't always associated as green. I'll have to send it to you. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Just as
Actually,
like a
when
color.
you mentioned that, I have another book.
Oh, do you really?
It's called Palette Perfect for graphic designers and illustrators. Really good one, because it talks about a little bit about the actual color and the culture behind it, and different, like what it can represent, and different. You get also some nice color palettes and
that's
examples of how you use it. It's a really great way to actually have some arguments for your colors, why you pick this. And here we have a blue one where she goes through the culture differences.
Oh, that's so important, because I think you get so swept up in like what colors mean to the culture in your community, but it's hard to remember that like the internet can make it seen by anyone across the world.
Exactly. Oh yeah, sorry, I got stuck.
That's great. Yeah, no, so I put in there for Palette Perfect. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. You are Karolin Chen on both Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for being here. Any last words before I cut you off?
No, actually, just be kind, be nice, be kind to yourself and your clients, and take care.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you. I had a really nice time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. So that was an awesome first show of the day. We got 2 more shows. Next up in about 5 minutes, so don't go anywhere. I will play a close off, and it says to go home, but don't go home. Just hang on out. Thank you so much for everyone that was in the chat. Thank you to Bruce and Jeff and Jessica and Oliver and Mike. Thank you to Wade for being such an awesome mod, as always. Make sure you check out his streams and his work. Bruce, Mike, Jessica, Jess, you guys know it. If you're in the chat, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Bahi. I hope this was a wonderful first show for you. Hope you stick around. Hello to Clever, and I'll see you guys all in just a second. Appreciate you. All right. Talk soon.